All right, it's in between. What that means is there are no rules. If the kiddies are in the car, you're welcome to listen, kiddies, but Mommy and Daddy may be hearing Mommy and Daddy words at this point, and we're not going to censor them because Uncle Todd gets really tired of putting monkey bleeps in.
Oh, I think we did pretty good this week.
I love that you call it, said kitties. I was imagining actual cats. Yeah, that's why I was kitties.
That's whenever I see my daughter's friends, it's usually the kiddies.
Aha.
All right, so I proposed a question during the week, and I really want to know this because I want to know about Superman in the original Richard Donner film flying around the Earth and spinning it back. I understand the comic book community not caring for that. However, as a kid, it was magical and almost poetic to me. And so to this day, when I watch it, I hear that voice in my head that it's somehow wrong, but I can't separate myself from it. So I'm curious with you guys what you think of that.
Originally, I didn't like it. I was like, well, how's it, if he goes backwards and the Earth stops, then that means things start floating away from it, and how's making the Earth spin a different way reverse time? My headcanon as I grew older is that's not actually him spinning the Earth. That's the visual representation of him going so fast he's going through time, and he actually hits a point where time stops, and then he's going backwards in time, and then he gets back there. And then when he goes back and forward in time to get everything back where it is, it's not him reversing the Earth again. It's him going so fast that time seems to stop for him, and then he goes faster.
Richard, your thoughts?
I don't fucking care. When I was a kid, the movie was rad. If you want to break it down now in scientific terms, nothing's going to hold up. Nothing, anything. Even a modern film right now, the giant cities, that terrible Peter Jackson movie that I just watched doesn't make any fucking sense. So I don't care. I mean, I know that I don't want to negate your question.
No, I know you're not.
I want to put something to it, but as a fan, as somebody who watched the movie, I don't obsess over the science. There are times when Superman's heat vision works underwater. There are times when characters talk in space.
Yes.
There are times when we watch sci-fi movies and there are explosions in space that you can hear. I just have to let go of the fact that this is what they want to do. And particularly because we're talking about the wacky 70s where they've just bent sci-fi rules all the time.
Yeah.
It's just part of that moment.
I look at it that, to me, it's that beautiful Clark and Lois connection that he wants her so badly that he's willing to do the one thing almost he would never do, which is kind of exploit the power and do that so he can have her back. And I look at that and I think, wow, if I'm going to tell that story, especially in the 70s where I have not the special effects abilities I do now, what a beautiful way to choose to represent that I would go and do these kind of things for her.
I mean, I was basically thinking you were talking about the science behind that because that's typically what most fanboys kind of
is that what it is?
Fall over.
Okay.
Yeah, like, that can't happen. You can't physically
no
actually
one can
do
fly
that.
either.
I know. And that's what I thought you were asking.
Well, I mean, I think what I've always heard it. And
he can't fly. He's not bulletproof. Women are reporters. I mean, what's going on here?
Sean Richard can't burp on cue, and Sean is a misogynistic.
But I mean, when you look at any of the stuff that the what are the names? Alexander, what's his name? Salskine, and his wife or his sister who did the Supergirl movie.
Yeah,
they just want to write a big dumb box office popcorn stuff that didn't really make any sense. They bent those rules all the time in terms of science just because they wanted to tell these big grand stories.
Now, see, I always thought that I didn't realize what the fanboys were upset about was that the science can't work. So at that point, if you're a fanboy that says the science can't work, I can pick apart that film and tell you everything that can't work in that movie.
The only argument that I've ever heard is the fanboys don't like the science.
I assumed, I think when I'd heard it was that the fanboys didn't like that was not something Superman could do. He would not have the ability to turn the Earth.
It's the Superman 2 throwing the magic thing from his symbol and being able to transport around.
If there's one part I hate of those movies, and I love Superman 2, I hate that part when he suddenly throws what looks like it's out of Willy Wonka. It looks like it's out of Willy Wonka, you know?
Right.
Something that goes and wraps around you. It's just goofy.
And that's what I was talking about. That's what I specifically like those moments in the movies where they just the producers and Richard Donner just kind of break the rules of whatever their powers are.
Well, yeah.
To be fair, that wasn't Richard Donner. He got fired before that part.
But the first movie. Then I'm talking about the later. They're just breaking the rules of what those movies didn't really stick to, like the norms of he can only do this. We can only do these. Kinds of things.
Like throwing a nuclear missile at the fault line is not going to make California fall into the ocean.
Right.
It's not like breaking off something that's hanging there.
But isn't it weird then? Okay,
Otisburg? Otisburg?
So,
Just a
Miss
little place.
Tessmacher! Isn't it weird that with these kind of things that you talk about, how it breaks the convention of Superman, it seems as though the films that we somehow judge modern Superman for the average person. I know, Richard, you're very different. I know Superman's very important to you, correct? You've said that before.
Yes.
You like? Am I incorrect?
It does support his business somewhat.
Well,
Yeah.
I know you've made mention of you liking that character because
I do like the character. Yeah.
It just seems odd to me then that if these films are goofy and they do these kind of things, it seemed, as I would watch the one that Bryan Singer directed and the other ones, and Henry Cavill and all this, people look at with such reverence at Christopher Reeve and what was created in the gee golly whiz kind of aspect of them, and they can't seem to let it go to let something new. Now, I know that you had the problems with Man of Steel, and you told me you didn't care for Man of Steel.
Well, you say people can't let go of the gee golly nice Superman? Is that what you're saying?
That they're judging what is new against something that back here that is what you're saying is faulted.
It's like people who...
Why are they holding such reverence for these films that you say have goofy stuff that they don't do this, and they love them so much? And I constantly hear time and time again, we're like, yeah, well, why did we even have to remake them? The Christopher Reeve films were beautiful. They were perfect. I read that kind of crap, and I'm like...
why do we write another issue of Superman? Because there's...
I agree.
Okay,
I'm just asking the question.
So
I'm playing devil's advocate.
Well, no. The Superman that the Christopher Reeve was kind of based off is kind of the classic character that you see in the comic books that has been that way for 70 years. Okay. As opposed to this modern interpretation from the Man of Steel where he's dour and woe is me and he's,
And Dad is saying maybe you shouldn't have saved kids.
Which
Which
was
your
the
powers a
biggest.
secret.
That was the biggest mistake in that movie.
Now, people that want to uphold the Christopher Reeve portrayal of that era as the golden era of Superman in movies, I mean, that's fine because it was his defining moment in the movies up to this date. But you can't compare those movies by modern standards at all. And certainly I would want to see somebody update Superman for modern storytelling. But I still think there are elements to the character that Christopher Reeve portrays that are elements in the comic books that people want to see shine through.
So what do you think of Henry Cavill as Superman? Just him. I'm not asking about the films. I'm asking about him as an actor.
He didn't have any lines.
I agree.
Like, I don't know who Henry Cavill as Superman is. He really did not have any lines. They let Waterworld speak for him the entire time in the first movie. No, not Aquaman.
Okay. Kevin Costner.
They let Kevin Costner speak for him the entire... Like, he would say... And then Kevin Costner would have like a little diatribe right there in the middle of whatever he was about to say.
I really love being a part of this podcast with you. I don't think you've ever been more condescending and a greater reduction of a person than saying Waterworld. Just his name is Waterworld. Now, I don't like Dances with Wolves, but you win. That is the best reduction to Kevin Costner ever.
That's all I could think of as. I'm sorry, but...
And I don't disagree with that. And I think, to me, that was one of the problems when I look back, now as they talk about recasting Batman, I see a lot of people wanting Michael Keaton back. I personally, as a Batman fan, don't care for Michael Keaton very much, and I'm like, they never let him be any of the elements of... You really don't see him as Bruce Wayne, other than one or two times where he walks in. What was that?
I would accept him as being Batman again if they did Batman Beyond, and he's the old Bruce Wayne.
I would too, but I do not want to see now... So I have problems with these kind of things like that because they're incorrectly drawing the character. It's not the actor that's wrong. I don't want to see Michael Keaton, especially if they're just going to put him where the one time he ever kind of talks about being Bruce Wayne is when Vicky Vale comes into his weird gallery that has all the costumes, and it was so obvious what they're trying to do, and he doesn't even have what I would think would be the flippant Bruce Wayne moment of dismissing.
Well, okay, so if we're jumping to Michael Keaton coming back to play Batman or a Bruce Wayne character, yes, at his age, he makes more sense to play a mature character like a Dark Knight Returns or a Batman Beyond Bruce Wayne,
which I would love to see.
And I think most people.
They'll do it at some point.
I would say that the reason most people would be interested in Michael Keaton coming back to that role is specifically because of the roles that he did after.
Yeah.
Right? If we're talking about Vulture and Birdman and all that kind of stuff,
right,
that's who they think they want to see, not his original Bruce Wayne.
And I remember loving the first two films with him because they came the closest to hitting what I knew Batman to be. And it was close enough that I was like, okay, we're on the right path. And you give me a nugget of something. I think that's kind of why Christopher Reeve stuff, even though there's goofy, you're still like, okay, that's parts of what I think are great about it.
It's also the first into the market, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we talk about we did a web series. Our friend has a webcomic, and a lot of times the things that become the most popular are often the things that were innovators and unique and the first into the marketplace. So our friend has been doing a webcomic book for 20, 25 years now, but he was one of the early webcomic people out there. And so he was able to create a brand and was unique and started something big. I'm not denying his talent. I'm just saying that there are a lot of other webcomic people that have come out in the last 5 years, but they can't garner the same interest and notoriety.
He's already got the traction.
He's already got the traction, the momentum, and the audience is already big. Right. We launched our web series probably a little bit too late because at the time, Felicia Day had done her The Guild. And started several of them, and that thing became kind of the first in the marketplace. Christopher Reeve's Superman and Tim Burton's Batman were those things.
But you know what?
I agree.
But then there are people that when Christopher Reeves and Michael Keaton came out were saying, "Well, that's not my Superman. My Batman. My Superman is different. Reeves. My Batman is on TV."
Yeah, and you're always going to have people that battle that now. I could not be more excited about Batman than what I hear of Matt Reeves.
Yes, wanting to make him a detective.
Make him a detective. And Richard, have you kept up with this at all with the new?
I have not been reading.
So Matt
much
Reeves
about it.
directed the last 2 Planet of the Apes films that we'll eventually
Really
get
good.
to, and he's a very good director. And hi, Jake.
They agree.
And
Somebody walk by your front door.
Okay. And what he's also teased is that he is apparently going to make it a rogues gallery film where he is a detective and he will almost meet every supervillain, almost kind of a Hush Long Halloween type thing where multiple people.
Great, I love it.
And he's like, he'll constantly be going to somebody to find out. So we'll meet all these characters. That's the Batman I want to see on film.
Right.
And dear God, he better not pick some. I keep hearing he wants Oscar Isaac as Batman. Oscar Isaac's like an inch taller than I am, and my Batman's got to be big.
It should be Wolverine instead.
Yeah, you know what? That's fine. Cast him as Wolverine so he can be tiny. Give me somebody big, and that give me Armie Hammer type size. Give me something like that. That's all I ask.
And somebody intimidating.
But that's what I would. That's what I'd kind of like to see with
Maybe
these
they could
superheroes.
get Hugh Jackman in.
Ooh. But that's what I would like to see with these superhero films is they've actually finally started acknowledging what the characters truly are instead of just sort of the glossy outside of them. It seems like so many of them, they just sort of touch out here. Instead, I think Marvel's done a much better job of diving into who the characters are. DC is not. Because I didn't get much out of the Aquaman thing. I honestly didn't care. I was like, meh, it's good. It's okay.
I love that we were suddenly go back to Marvel and DC versus Marvel and DC. That seems to come up almost every in between.
It does, but really, I think it's a great conversation to have. What Marvel has understood is let's actually find out what makes the characters work, what the dynamics are between them, and that's why you can have Infinity War work when it's each character only gets 5 minutes, but somehow it feels rich that they're there.
So, Captain Marvel or Shazam, which one do you think you're more looking forward to? Now, people will listen to this after they've come out, so they can judge you based upon your answer right now, because we haven't seen them yet. Captain Marvel or Shazam?
I'm going to throw some things out there. So, Shazam, I'm looking forward to because I think we're finally going to see the brighter side of the DC cinematic universe. So that will be interesting. It feels like it will be a brand new foray into it.
Okay.
Captain Marvel being a female-led, and I believe female-directed movie.
I don't remember.
I
can't remember. Well, hang on. Let's find out.
For some reason, I don't think it is. But
I don't think it is.
You could be right.
Yeah.
I think I'm. Let's see.
Okay. While you search, let's not leave the people.
Jumping back to the 90s, being something completely different that is also going to tie into a movie that's coming out 2 months later after it. I mean, I think I'm more excited for Captain Marvel because I have a 10-year investment in the series.
Right, and it's supposed to lead into Endgame.
Endgame, so that's, building up. But I'm excited to see what Shazam does, how it can transform, show a different side to the DC universe, that everything doesn't have to be grim and gritty. If I picked between two of them, I'm going with Captain Marvel, but it's really close.
Would you like to go or you want me to go?
Oh, I don't have a preference.
If I'm choosing, I'm more excited about Shazam because I loved Shazam as a boy so much.
I guess there were 2 directors on it, by the way. Anna Boden is a female director.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. I loved Shazam, and it came from that weird 70s Saturday morning TV show. And that was my